Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront Updates and another Capital Supremacy update video, I guess we could call it, because in this video I wanted to talk about the arguably biggest addition into this patch, except for of course the game mode, which is the Infiltrator class reinforcement, which includes the BX Commando Droid for the Separatists and the ARC Trooper for the Republic. So I wanted to basically first of all give you my first impressions on them, what I think is good, bad, what they could potentially tweak on them, as well as some tips and tricks for those of you who might not have had a chance to try them yet or are struggling to get the ropes. So overall I am very happy with these additions, and I didn't realize how much I would like them, simply because, you know, all we've gotten in terms of core gameplay additions have been heroes, which is really fun, but it's also very limited. There's only one person on each team that can play them, and to be fair, I'm a pretty good player. I can get the heroes fairly fast by rushing with like the assault or something in the beginning, but if you're like a medium to low player, you're pretty much never gonna get the heroes. And you see a lot of complaints about that on Reddit or Twitter or on my videos, where oh, Anakin was released, but I haven't been able to play him for a week, except for a little bit in Heroes vs Villains, because I was the first person to click on him. But now that was not the issue, because I think there can be 6 of these Infiltrator class reinforcements alive at the same time in each team, which means that everyone pretty much has a chance to get them. And I think I've probably played like the ARC Trooper almost as many times today as I have Anakin in Galactic Assault for a month, or not really, but you get my point. I can easily play them 10 times per round or similarly, simply because it's really fast to get those battle points, and the slot for them are usually free to pick, and people die pretty fast with them as well, so even if you sit in the menu for 15 seconds they tend to become available. So what do I think about them out of a gameplay perspective? Let's start off with the ARC Trooper. The ARC Trooper is what I would arguably say the strongest of the two, and it's well, very strong, because with the dual wielding you can pump out some insane amount of damage on like short to medium range. And what I like is that the blasters don't overheat too fast either, so even if you spam both your trigger buttons at the same time, you can do it for like 10 seconds before it overheats, which means you can get a lot of kills before overheating, and that's not the same for the BX Commando Droid. So that's really the main thing I like about the ARC Trooper, the fact that the main blaster does most of the job really. When I've gotten like, I got like a 20-25 man kill streak, as you can see in the background, that was mostly with the blaster, simply because they're so strong. And I almost would argue that they're a little bit too strong, because even on long range they are not that ineffective, simply because they fire so many bolts that even though most of them are inaccurate, you will still be able to hit, as compared to the BX Commando Droid, which does have a more accurate blaster, but it's slower, it does less damage, which meant that every time I had a long range engagement, the ARC Trooper actually won, which I don't think should be the case, because dual wielding should be like, okay, you're gonna be really powerful on short to medium range, but not on long range. But now you pretty much wreck the BX Commando Droid on all ranges, because close range you can kill them in like half a second with the dual wielding, and for long range you can either use your blaster or of course power blast, which I will get to in a second. As for the abilities, the first one also a really strong one, I think it's called Shock Trap, I'm not entirely sure, but basically you chuck it down like with Lando. When you pop it, you knock people around that area down to the ground and deal a little bit of damage, which is also a very powerful tool to use on command posts and similarly. And you can also wreck heroes with it, because now that they've fixed so that you can't block or shoot when you're knocked down, it means that if you knock down a hero very close to you and you unleash your dual wielding pistols on them, you will take down like half their health at least. And I took out multiple heroes with the ARC Trooper. Sure, if they get the upper hand and use a force power on you or knock you down, you'll probably die, but it was almost a little bit too effective against heroes. But it was fun to use, that's for sure. And I even got a couple of kills with the Shock Trap, but I think that's only when they're really low on health. And then of course we have the helmet scanner ability, which basically pings enemies around you with like basically a little bit of a ping, and then it's quiet for a second or two, then it pings again, and so on. Which it's simple, really effective, and combined with the star card that gives you heals whenever you kill someone affected by the helmet scanner, it means that it's not just important for scanning people, but once you get that star card, which you get at level 10, I kind of use it more as a get me heals than actually scanning, or it's a combination of both, but it gives extra value to it, simply put. And then thirdly, the Power Blast, which charges up a shot that is really effective on long range. I think it has a little bit of a homing effect to it, I'm not entirely sure. And I'm actually not sure how much damage it does, because I did get a couple of one-shots with it, but most of the time when I hit like even an assault or officer, they would not die from one hit. I'm not sure if that was because they were boosted or because it might do different damage depending on where on the body you hit and so on. But most of the time I didn't use it too much. I'd rather rush into short and medium range, but sometimes when I saw a sniper across the map or similarly, I'd charge up the Power Blast and boom, a free kill. So that's also a very useful ability, but probably the one I used the least out of the 3 abilities, although they were all really good. So overall, ARC Trooper, very happy about it, and it's almost borderline a little bit too strong, but the thing is that it can still be killed pretty easily. 350 health isn't that much, but if you were to add, for instance, 300 health to it, it would be as strong, if not stronger, than some of the heroes, which is why I'm thinking maybe its offensive is a little bit too strong. I'm not sure, but I think people will learn how to properly counter the ARC Trooper. As for the BX Droid, this was one that I struggled with a little bit in the beginning because I don't think the blaster is very good. It is more accurate, but it does very little damage. Like on long range / medium range, if you go for headshots and try to take enemies down, I feel like you would be more effective with any blaster from the assault, officer, or specialist. I don't know if that's just a feeling, but it does feel like it deals very little damage. And as I mentioned earlier, you can easily, even on long range, beat it with the blasters that the ARC Trooper has. However, this is what I realized, that you shouldn't rely on the blaster too much. As soon as I started focusing more on the melee, the BX Droid became quite good. And also, if you get the star card that adds an extra dodge, that is really, really good. Because the BX Droid's sideways dodge is basically a roll, so it's pretty slow. But the forward dodge is a pretty big leap. It's longer than the leap on any of the other characters in the game, as far as I understand. And when you have that star card that both reduces the cooldown of the dodge and adds a third dodge, that meant that I could dodge around like crazy, slashing people with the vibro sword. And I actually figured that to be the most effective method, because if I stop and start to shoot, I've suddenly become vulnerable as compared to if I just dodge around all over the place and hit them with the vibro sword, which of course in the third hit will knock them down. That was actually the most effective method, and I think I got more melee kills than I got blaster kills. The times I used the blaster mostly was if I, for instance, hit 3 consecutive melee hits and they didn't die, which is quite often actually. I would follow up with a blaster shot to finish them off, because I think each melee hit does somewhere around 80, at least that's what I saw when I hit it once and then I died from them, which means that if you hit 3 of them, you will not even kill someone who's boosted, and you can't kill ARC Troopers either, so you kind of had to land that third knockdown and then finish them off with the blaster. But the vibro sword charges do recharge very fast as well, meaning that you can still kind of hit 3 times, dodge once or twice and hit him again without shooting. So it depends on the situation a little bit, but you can see me here getting some crazy dodges on Obi-Wan, for instance, combining it with the smoke screen, which not only blocks the vision but removes all the UI elements. And at first I thought it wasn't that good, but then when I started facing off against BX droids, I realized how hard it was to see them around the smoke because of the missing UI elements. So it was the kind of character that took some getting used to, that at the start I was like, this is not very good, I wasn't doing very good, but then I slowly adjusted to it and realized that the best way is just run around like crazy, dodge, 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 melee, melee, dodge, dodge, and don't focus too much on the blaster, because the blaster is a little bit too weak, and I still do think it needs a bit of a buff, but it still works very effectively using the melee style. And then of course we have the thermal vision, which is also something that marks enemies similar to the ARC Trooper, but this is more of a permanent thermal vision, not a scan pulse, so it's a little bit more effective, I would say, than the scan pulse on the ARC Trooper. But same here, since I do have the star card that gives me health, I always pop thermal vision first, pop smoke screen, jump in, and then use the melee to take them out and also get health back from those kills. So overall, I gotta say that I actually enjoy the BX droid the most. Yes, the ARC Trooper is a lot better. I got probably 2 or 3 times as long streaks on average with the ARC Trooper, but the BX Droid was the most fun to play simply because of its unique playstyle and the fact that it was extremely satisfying if you managed to dodge around people and melee them down, especially if it was a hero you knocked down on the ground. Yeah, I think I prefer the BX Droid in terms of fun factor, but they're both extremely fun, just that the ARC Trooper is the one that I think is the most powerful. And I've already briefly talked about the star cards, and I think they're all pretty viable, but I would say that the evasion one, where you have 1 extra combat roll, is very, very important for the BX Droid. Not so much for the ARC Trooper, so you could always switch that out every time you switch side, but I tend to forget that, so I prefer to pick 3 star cards and then keep that. And that combat roll, or the dodge to be more specific, is very important when you're using that kind of jump in and out tactic that you do with the BX Droid. And then the one that reduces the ability recharge times when damage is dealt to you, I also thought was very good, simply because, again, especially on the BX Droid, you do very heavily rely on that melee, so if you can get that faster back, that's really good. And then, of course, regain health when you defeat an enemy, especially with the epic level where you get 55 back when they're revealed by the helmet scanner or thermal vision, is kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, because getting 50 health back in the middle of a fight can be extremely helpful. But I'm sure the other 2 star cards can have its uses, at least the one that basically marks enemies that shoot you. I tried that for a little bit and it was pretty useful, but I don't think the interrogation one is that good, because you reveal nearby enemy locations by defeating an enemy using melee strikes, which is not really relevant for the ARC Trooper. And for the BX Droid, well, you still have the thermal vision, so it's a bit redundant, I would say, and it's not worth switching out any of the other cards, in my opinion, for it. So that's basically the setup that I'm rolling. So overall, to summarize, really happy with both of the 2 reinforcements. They add a lot of value to the game. I think the BX Droid is the most fun to play, ARC Trooper is definitely the most powerful one, and I do think a slight tweaking could be good there, either by slightly nerfing the blasters of the ARC Trooper or buffing up the blaster on the BX Droid to make it a little bit more viable on longer range, as it's a bit too locked down on melee right now, which maybe that's the intention, and in that case fine. But that's the only tweaks I would really ask for them, because otherwise I think they work really well. But yeah, that's all I've got for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these reinforcements in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.